Absolute joy it's been to have you with us. Man, you are tearing it up.
Oh,
it's fantastic. You know, every time we get together, it is always so much fun, right? I think it was about 3 years ago or so. We had you were playing with These Guys,
right.
as most people here on Island know you as These Guys' preferred saxophone.
Yeah.
But it's been a real treat to be able to have you solo with us for this, the Charlie Parker and Strings.
Oh.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. When I got the word that you wanted me, I was like, really, me? But just it's an honor and a privilege just to be able to come in and play with this phenomenal orchestra under your leadership.
Oh, thanks so much.
Yeah.
So you're from around here, from Jacksonville, right?
Jacksonville, Florida, originally.
Yeah.
I got to South Carolina, the Beaufort area, by way of the United States Marine Corps. Spent 20 years in the Marine Band. And I was fortunate enough to end my career right here at Paris Island.
So the Marine Band, I mean, all the military bands are fantastic. I mean, there's so many incredible artists, you know, who've gone through those bands. But you've been filling your retirement now with gigs all over the place.
Yes. Well, you know, a lot of guys, once they leave the military music program, that's it for them. I'm one of the few fortunate ones that was able to kind of keep that going, and with a phenomenal band out here called These Guys. So just to be able to perform with those guys and these guys on a regular basis, and our schedule is really busy.
Right.
It's just an amazing thing.
So as a saxophonist, how did you come to music as a kid?
Music education back in Jacksonville, Florida. And, you know, and I get kind of emotional when I talk about my musical beginnings. I was so passionate about music back in junior high school. I got introduced to the saxophone by my dad. He introduced me to the saxophone in Grover, Washington. From that point, it was like a natural thing. So I began playing and listening to Grover, and the rest was history.
Now, of course, Grover Washington plays the tenor sax most of the time, but of course, you're an alto sax player. So how did you make that switch?
Well, I started out on alto saxophone, and then later I kind of transitioned to the tenor saxophone. I love that rich, low flavor that Grover brought. But then Grover did other things on the alto saxophone, and then I liked that too. And so I started really trying to really get into the upper register of the saxophone.
Right.
And I felt that the alto saxophone provided me a vessel towards getting higher in the stratosphere.
Right.
Through the altissimo range.
Well, you know, Charlie Parker, you know, his nickname was Bird.
Yeah.
You know, because he was always using that high part of his range and floating and flitting. You know, it just remarkable. So when was the first time you heard Charlie Parker?
I heard Charlie Parker in high school. I want to say I was my sophomore year in high school.
Yeah.
I got turned on to Charlie Parker. I got my first omnibook, Charlie Parker omnibook.
Right.
I was able to...
Hold on, we got to tell everyone what an omnibook is. It's got all of his music, all of his solos, painstakingly transcribed.
Absolutely.
Every note. I mean, it looks like hieroglyphics. I mean, there's so much music on those pages.
Absolutely. And it is a great teaching tool for young students starting out playing. I listened to, I read, had that omnibook and kind of listened to the recordings, and was able to basically, those transcriptions were right spot on.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you learn a lot of technique from playing with that omnibook as well.
Right. Now, of course, Charlie Parker and Strings is two fantastic recordings, really legendary recordings, and we're playing selections from each of these. These were seminal recordings from 1949, 1950. Charlie Parker was a huge classical music fan. I mean, he worshipped Igor Stravinsky, and so we went to his producer Norman Granz and asked him if he might be able to do something with strings. He had heard that Billie Holiday had just recorded "Lush Life" with strings, and he wanted to do a recording just like it.
Yeah.
So Norman Granz gathered some string players from the NBC Symphony who were playing under Toscanini. The harp player was from the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra. Mitch Miller was playing oboe on these sessions. And it was really magical. I mean, a lot of people think that Bird kind of sold out when he was, doing music with strings, but it was more like he was selling in.
Yeah, yeah.
And those recordings, which they just taught, I mean, they had a quick little reading session and they were done, but they exploded onto the market and brought all these new fans to jazz.
Wow, yeah, yeah. And even today, change is really difficult for some people. And I can just imagine when Bird started doing, introducing those strings to what he was doing, how people were like, oh. But look at those recordings, Bird with strings today, some of the best recordings you ever heard.
Well, legend has it that he walked into the studio and he saw all of these wizened, symphonic players, and he kind of panicked and just like ran out. And Norman Granz had to grab him, bring him back into the studio, and all the players, they had no idea who Charlie Parker was. So they just kind of
begrudgingly.
Thank you. Playing the charts, and from the first note, they were absolutely riveted. And you can hear the magic in the recordings. And so for all of us to play these original string parts and to have you playing here with us, it just recreates this very, very magical moment in music history.
Oh, wow. Well, I got to tell you a secret. The first time I heard the Hilton Head Symphony Orchestra play, I said, you know what? I would love the opportunity to play and have this phenomenal orchestra back me. So I just want to thank you so much, John, just for the opportunity to be here, man. Be in your space. You're the man. You're the man.
Well, they always say surround yourself with great people. So it's been a real pleasure to have you here. So you're going to be back to do one more tune from Charlie Parker and String. But in the meantime, we've got a trio of songs coming up, including some Duke Ellington, Sophisticated Lady, written for string orchestra. That's going to be followed with Sara Zoe is going to join us for a little more Gershwin, and she's also going to sing a classic by Etta James.